They told me to move my boat, but forgot who owned the water beneath their feet. That's when I realized this wasn't about rules. It was about control. And I had just pulled the thread that unravels their entire suburban empire. You think you bought peace when you signed that contract? A quiet home. A neighborhood of trimmed hedges, polite nods, and weekend barbecues. But the truth is buried deeper. Behind the manicured lawns and friendly HOA newsletters lies a system engineered to keep you docile. Controlled. Submissive. It starts small. A letter in the mailbox. Your boat violates Article 14, Section B. A clipboard checkmark. A polite threat. But let me tell you what they didn't know, the lake wasn't theirs. It was part of the original land deed, signed over to my grandfather in 1954, before any HOA even existed. That lake, and the land surrounding it, including the clubhouse they held their monthly meetings in, belonged to me. And when I brought that paper forward, when I stood in that sterile HOA meeting with their laminated agendas and smug little smiles, I watched them flinch. Because the illusion had cracked. They weren't ready for a homeowner who knew. See, these associations aren't just about community standards. That's the sweet-smelling lie. The truth? They are miniature governments, unregulated, insulated, and armed with bylaws written decades ago by men you've never met but who still control your every decision. They fine you for the color of your mailbox. They tell you what kind of flag you can fly. They regulate how long your garage can be open. They'll repo your property before your bank does. And it's legal, because you consented, by living there. But what if you never truly gave that consent? What if their very foundation, the legal framework of control, is built on forgotten paperwork, vague amendments, and scare tactics dressed as neighborly concern? What I uncovered next changed everything. Buried in the original HOA charter, written in 1978, was a clause, quietly deleted from the new version mailed out every January. It stated that any land not directly purchased by the HOA, but used for community gatherings, could be reclaimed by its original deed holder if ever contested. Guess what sits directly on my family's land? The HOA's prized clubhouse. Their symbol of power. Their throne. And suddenly, their letters stopped coming. But it wasn't over. No. That's when the war began. Because power doesn't retreat, it mutates. They started showing up with cameras. Taking photos of my yard. Filing concerned citizen reports to the city. The same neighbors who used to wave at me started whispering at their mailboxes. My trash cans were mysteriously overturned. Code enforcement visited my property 4 times in 1 week. This wasn't a community. It was a syndicate. An invisible council of suburban tyrants in pastel polos and white smiles, weaponizing bureaucracy like a blade. But I refused to bend. Because I had something they feared more than legal ownership. I had awareness. And once you see through the picket fence illusion, there's no going back. So hear me when I say this. You're not crazy. You're not alone. And you're not powerless. But you are surrounded. If they've ever fined you for a flower bed. If they've ever written you up for a kid's bicycle in the driveway. If they've ever claimed authority without accountability. You're already inside the machine. The only question now is, will you learn how to dismantle it? Stay with me. In the next section, I'll show you how the HOA system was never about safety, but surveillance, and how ancient neighborhood covenants passed down through developers are being used as weapons in a silent psychological war for your mind, your land, and your manhood. This is bigger than you think. Welcome to the Quiet War. Studio microphone. The descent continues, surveillance, suppression, and the hidden laws of suburbia. They'll say it's for your safety. They always do. That the cameras mounted on the lampposts are to deter crime. That the anonymous complaint system keeps things civil. That the rules, pages upon pages of microscopic regulation, are meant to protect your property value. But that's the bait. Let's talk about what's really happening beneath the surface. When you move into a homeowners association neighborhood, You don't just buy a home, you enter a behavioral contract. Not just with people, but with a system. A surveillance net built to reshape how you act, what you say, even how you feel on your own property. I saw it firsthand. After I challenged their authority, after I pulled the deed and cracked their foundation, I became a subject of surveillance. Quiet, constant, unspoken. The HOA president never came to my door. Instead, the neighborhood watch grew eyes. Cars slowed down when they passed my driveway. I started receiving reports about violations I hadn't committed. A note appeared in my mailbox. We're watching. This wasn't random. This was orchestrated isolation. They wanted to remind me that even though I owned the land, they owned the narrative. And that's the secret most homeowners never realize. HOAs don't just enforce rules, they enforce submission. Your yard is a compliance test. Your porch furniture is a loyalty check. Your silence is a surrender. But here's what they don't want you to know. Most HOAs operate under old covenants, called CC and RS, covenants, conditions, and restrictions, many of which were written decades ago, often by developers long gone, and rubber-stamped by lawyers who never lived a day in these neighborhoods. Buried in those documents are powers no local city council would dare to claim. Powers to levy fines, place liens, and restrict freedoms with no oversight. Powers to decide whether your child's basketball hoop is a nuisance. Powers to confiscate your right to rent, to paint, to live your own life. And those powers are passed down like ancient scrolls, rarely questioned, rarely challenged. But here's the most chilling part. These HOAs aren't just rogue boards. Many are backed by property management firms, corporate enforcement arms that specialize in monetizing microcontrol. Every fine, every violation letter, every mandatory inspection, they profit. Not from your well-being, but from your obedience. It's control for profit. Tyranny wrapped in landscaping regulations. And you wonder why the letters never stop. You wonder why they fine the old veteran for raising his flag on a pole too tall. Why they ban vegetable gardens in backyards. Why they penalize you for leaving your garage door open for 10 minutes too long. Because they are conditioning you. And once you accept the lie that this is just part of living in a nice neighborhood, you stop asking questions. You stop pushing back. You forget you were born free. So I'm asking you now, wake up. They're not protecting your home. They're programming your mind. The real war isn't about your boat, your lawn, or your mailbox. It's about your sovereignty. And if you're feeling that tightness in your chest right now, that rising anger in your gut, that's the first sign you're breaking the trance. Now I want you to do something with me. Go to the comments and write this phrase twice. I reclaim the deed to my mind. Not for the algorithm. Not for me. For you. To lock it in. To mark the moment. Because once you see the cage, they can't unmake you forget it was ever there. And in the next section, I'll reveal how many of these HOAs trace back to ancient zoning hierarchies, land divisions rooted in post-war social control, racial redlining, and experimental community programming. This isn't just about your neighborhood. This is about how America was engineered to make men forget they were kings on their land. The picket fence was never meant to keep others out. It was built to keep you in. Studio microphone revealing the ancient map, post-war programming, redlining roots, and the manufactured manhood crisis. You ever wonder why these neighborhoods feel the same? Same house styles. Same mailboxes. Same hollow smiles and cul-de-sac cookouts. It's no accident. It's a formula, and you were never meant to see the blueprint. Let's rip the mask off. Most HOAs trace their origin to post-World War II America, when returning veterans were flooding back with GI Bills and dreams of freedom. Developers saw the opportunity, and so did the state. That's when they began designing neighborhoods not just as homes, but as control grids. Using zoning codes, racial redlining, and economic gatekeeping, they created planned communities where conformity became the new patriotism, and control was dressed up as security. And the enforcers? HOAs. They were never truly about neighborhood harmony. They were tools, born from developers, but quickly adopted by municipalities to outsource civil control. Why send a city official when a local board of obedient citizens could do it cheaper, quieter, and with more psychological leverage? This is how ancient zoning tactics morphed into modern manipulation. Did you know most HOA codes are built atop archaic land use doctrines? Stuff dating back to the Homestead Acts, even farther. Some even use century-old clauses designed for plantation management, repackaged with suburban branding. You read that right. Those community covenants they weaponize against your garden gnome? They were originally crafted to control sharecroppers, restrict land access, and enforce obedience across rural estates. Now they're tucked inside your HOA welcome packet, covered in pastel colors and community values slogans. Let that sink in. You are living under a legal time capsule, and they are betting you'll never read it. The restrictions aren't about cleanliness. They're about conditioning. They make you ask permission for normal things so you forget how to act without it. Want to paint your door red? File a request. Want to install solar panels? Apply, wait, and pray they approve. Want to store tools in a shed you built on your own soil? Denied, for aesthetic disruption. You are being trained, slowly, to live like a dependent. And it's working. Men who once stormed beaches and built railroads now argue over hedge heights. Fathers who once led families now bow before committees of retirees with clipboards. Sons grow up watching their dads get harassed for basketball hoops and unsanctioned porch flags. This is how you kill the masculine spirit, quietly. Not with war. Not with chains. But with paperwork. With bylaws. With the dull pain of constant permission seeking. But here's the twist they never saw coming. Some of us still remember. Some of us still hold the original deeds. Still read the laws. Still know that the land, the house, the freedom, was never theirs to grant. It was ours to reclaim. Because once you understand that this system wasn't built for your good, but for your obedience, you begin to see everything differently. You start asking dangerous questions. Who really profits from these HOA fines? Who trained the management companies in psychological compliance tactics? Why do the same enforcement patterns exist across thousands of neighborhoods nationwide? Because this isn't local. This is national. Maybe even global. A network of soft cages, designed not to lock your body, but to shrink your vision. To make you think 2 inches beyond your front lawn is all you deserve. But not you. Not anymore. The deed you hold, the rules you follow, the documents you signed, they only hold power if you remain silent. And in Section 4, I'll give you the key to fight back. Not with lawsuits. Not with violence. But with awareness, alliance, and psychological refusal, the 3 pillars they fear most. Because once a man remembers his sovereignty, not a clipboard in the world can hold him. Studio microphone: the final breach, how to dismantle the HOA machine and reclaim the land beneath your feet. You've seen the bars. You've felt the weight. Now let's tear down the system they built around you, brick by psychological brick. Because here's the raw truth they hide behind every violation letter. You were never meant to fight back. HOAs were engineered for submission, not resistance. The structure is designed to choke out dissent before it breathes. But that also means, once you do resist, they have no defense. They're not warriors. They're paper tyrants. And paper burns. So here's how we dismantle the machine. Step 1. Learn the language of power. You must read everything. The CC and RS. The bylaws. The original developer agreements. Most people never even open the folder they're handed at closing. That's exactly what the system wants. Inside those documents are the cracks. Clauses that contradict each other. Rules that expired but were never updated. Rights you never knew you had, like the right to withhold dues under non-performance, or to challenge fines in local courts where you get to speak. Knowledge isn't just power, it's leverage. Step 2. expose the violations they don't want you to see. HOAs love to cite uniformity. But dig deeper, and you'll find their violations. Unlicensed contractors managing finances. Meetings held without proper notice. Board members voting on issues that directly profit them, illegal in most states. Shine a light on that, and the cockroaches scatter. When they threatened to sue me for boat storage, I sent back a notice of violation against them, for decades of illegal occupancy of my private land. I attached the land deed. Public records. Photographs. Timeline. You know what I got back? Silence. Because when you pull back the curtain, you see it clearly. They don't understand the law. They understand fear. And once you stop giving them that, you become ungovernable. Step 3. Build alliance quietly, strategically. You are not the only one who feels the grip. There's the retired Marine down the block who got fined for flying his flag. The single mom who had her car towed because she parked facing the wrong direction. The veteran who was evicted for non-payment of HOA fees, even though his house was paid off. Speak to them. Quietly. Without drama. Because isolated, you're a problem. Together, you are an uprising. Petition to replace the board. File for audits. Run for office inside the HOA itself. Turn their rules against them. But the most powerful weapon? Psychological refusal. That moment when you stop internalizing their authority. When the next violation letter doesn't rattle your bones. When their clipboard doesn't command your fear. When you realize they're just people, hiding behind acronyms, policy manuals, and empty threats. And most of all, when you speak the truth, out loud. Because silence is how the paper prison stays sealed. But voice? Voice is fire. This war was never about a boat. It was about the soul of a man. And in standing up, I remembered something they had almost made me forget. This land was not gifted to me by the HOA. It was earned. Fought for. Deeded with blood, sweat, and backbone. So hear me now, you do not owe them your obedience. You owe yourself your freedom. And when the day comes that your feet touch that grass, your chest rises, and you look those clipboard tyrants in the eye without blinking. That's when the system starts to crack. That's when others awaken. That's when fear changes sides. And if you've made it this far, you're not the same man who started this video. So tell them. Tell the algorithm. Tell yourself. Go back to the comments and write again. I reclaim the deed to my mind. I reclaim the deed to my mind. Because you do. Because they lied. Because you remember now. And nothing terrifies them more than a man who remembers who he is. Studio microphone, end. Fade to black. Slow, deep ambient music as screen shows the HOA violation letter catching fire.